Our common goal, our common mission, which is to put kids first. To remember what counts in education is really the kid. Whether you're a student at a charter school, a virtual school, a public school, we're all trying to fight for the best thing that works for kids. Teacher quality, choices that work, regardless of where you are. Not everyone fits into the same mold, and we are so proud to have her here with us to help unite us in a common goal. Thank you, Michelle.
Good morning, Indiana. I want to thank all of the elected officials here today, to Commissioner Bennett, to the parents, the grandparents, the students for being here this morning. But in particular, I want to make sure that we are acknowledging the people in the room actually have the hardest job every single day, which is our teachers. So can I hear it for Indiana's teachers? So I see a lot of people out there. For those of you who are sort of new to this school reform effort, I know you must think that it's a little bit strange. Why are all the adults fighting about these issues that seem like such common sense, right? Let me tell you a little bit about my experience in coming into this field and understanding some of the dynamics that are going on. I was the chancellor of the Washington, D.C. public schools for 3.5 years. I took over the school district in 2007, and when I took it over, it was the lowest performing and most dysfunctional school district in all of the country, and it was widely known for that. We had an achievement gap between where our white students were performing and where our black students were performing of 70 percentage points. That's 70 percentage points. If you were a 9th grader entering into high school in our system, the probability that you would graduate from college within 5 years was 9%. And of all of the 8th graders in the city schools, only 8% of them were on grade level in mathematics. 8%. Which means that 92% of our kids did not have the skills and knowledge necessary to be productive members of society. So I started going around the city and talking about what I thought was possible. That we wanted a school system that served every single child well. And I would often go to these forums where I would give speeches like this, and I would talk about the vision, and I would talk about what could be accomplished, what we had to do right by kids, and inevitably, afterwards, people would come up to me after the speech and say, you know what, Michelle, we like you. You seem smart, you're energetic, you're really passionate about school reform, but you are not going to be successful. And I always said, gee, thanks. Why do you think so? And they'd say, because schools are a reflection of the communities that they're in. And as long as we have the economic disparity in this country that we do, we're always going to have an inequality in schools, because you'll have some neighborhoods and cities and communities where there's lots of wealth and lots of resources, and in those communities you're going to have great schools, and then you're going to have other communities that are less well-resourced, there's poverty, etc. And in those neighborhoods you're going to have not so good schools. That's the way capitalism works, that's the way democracy works, there's nothing that you can do about it. And I never used to believe that that's the way that things needed to be. And I could never figure out how do I articulate why things don't have to be that way for the kids in America today. And it wasn't until about a year after that I had the good fortune of meeting Warren Buffett. So kids, have you ever heard of Warren Buffett before? Yeah? He's like one of the richest men in the world. Smart guy. So I never thought in my whole life that I'd have the opportunity to meet Warren Buffett. There I was one evening in Omaha, Nebraska, and I'm having a steak dinner with Warren Buffett. And he looks at me and he says, you know, Michelle, it is very easy to to fix the problems in public education in America today. And I said, really? Can you hurry up and tell me what it is so I can run back to DC and do it? And he said, all you have to do is make private schools illegal and assign every child to a public school by random lottery. So think about that for a minute. Because if we had done that in DC, which means that every ambassador's child, every CEO's child, every congressman's child, and the president's 2 children all got assigned to a random school by lottery, which means that most of them would be going across town in Anacostia every day for school. I guarantee you that you would never see a faster movement of resources from one side of the city to the other as you would in that circumstance. And I also guarantee you that we would very quickly have a system of excellent schools. So the point that Warren Buffett was trying to make was not let's close down private schools, but if everybody had equal chances and we were all sending our children to those schools together, then we would see a wildly different thing occur. So the question in my mind is not, is it possible to change the circumstance so that every kid in this country can get an excellent education? That's not the question, because the answer to that question is very easy. Yes, we can, right? The problem in this country is, are we, as the adults in this nation, do we have the wherewithal that it would take to make the incredibly difficult decisions necessary to make that a reality for every single American child? And the answer to that question so far in America has been no. But we have the opportunity to change that circumstance. And we have the opportunity in Indiana today for this state to be leading the charge across the rest of the nation. Indiana can be at the forefront of education reform, but there are 2 things that are going to happen in order for us to determine whether the Hoosier state is going to lead the charge or not. The first thing is that we need to make sure that we don't make these issues about politics, about partisan politics. Yesterday I had the good fortune of meeting with Republicans and Democrats. You have a situation where you have a Republican governor who is in lockstep with a Democratic president who are talking about the same things in education reform. And let me tell you why this is so important. Because I actually made this mistake, so I'm going to tell you about what you should not do. I'm a Democrat. Because I'm a Democrat, I used to be against school vouchers. Because people say, well, it's taking money away from the system and it's giving money to private entities, so I was against it. Until I actually got into the trenches and I was responsible day to day for making sure that 45,000 kids in the city of DC were getting a great education. And then let me tell you what happened. I had mothers coming to me every day who had done exactly what we would wanted them to do. So they researched their neighborhood school, and they'd say, I can't send my child to this school. 10% of the kids in this school are in grade level. My child has a 90% chance of failure if I send them to this school. Can't do it, right? So the next, they would enter into our, what we call the out-of-boundary lottery process. We had about a dozen schools that were great in DC on the other side of town. They always had a few spots open every year, so people would apply for the lottery. And then inevitably they would lose the lottery because there are not enough spaces in those great schools. And then they would come to me and say, now what do I do? And if I, as the chancellor of the school system, did not have a public school, a slot in a public school, that I would feel comfortable sending my own 2 children to. If I didn't have that to offer to the mother, then I thought, who am I to deny this mom a $7,500 voucher to potentially go to, for example, a Catholic school and get a great education for their kids? I was not going to look that mother and that child in the eye and say, just give me 5 years. Take one for the team. Just wait it out until the system gets better. That's not an answer that I would accept as a mother, and it is not an answer that we can accept as the people who are running these school systems across the nation. So when I came out in favor of the voucher program, people said, you're crazy. You're a Democrat. This is not, you're not supposed to do that as a very good Democrat. And first lose kids out of your system and you're going to lose money out of your system. I said, here's the problem with your thinking. My job is now to preserve this system that has been failing our children for too long. My job is to make sure that every single child gets an excellent education, regardless of what school they're in. We have to stay away from those partisan ideals. And so my second and last point, we have to make every single decision based on what is in the best interest of children. Children. You have a great situation here in Indiana because I've met with all of these legislators. You have the Speaker of your House, you have the Chairman, you have all of these people who are working for education reform right now. When I was meeting with some of them yesterday, one legislator said to me, you know what, Michelle, I'm with you. I know when we're sitting here having these policy discussions, I'm 100% behind these reforms. But I'm just telling you that it's really hard. Because when I go back into my district, sometimes angry people will come and they'll be picketing me and they'll say they don't want the reforms to happen. And so it's really hard to kind of square that with what I know is right. So my constituents sometimes are angry. And I said, this is what you need to remember. If what you're doing as an elected official is always just turning towards where the noise is the loudest, then inevitably, sometimes you're going to be turning your back towards the children. Because the children in the state of Indiana, they can't vote. They can't contribute to your campaign. And so oftentimes, you're not hearing their voices. But you have to know as an elected official that your constituents aren't just the people who vote for you. Your constituents are also the next generation of voters. And you want to make sure that Indiana is a healthy state moving forward. You have to represent all of your constituents, to also include the children. So I'm so pleased to be here today because finally, we don't have a situation where the kids and their voice and their opinions and what's right for them is going to go unheard. Because every single person in this room is going to make sure today that these courageous legislators have the backing they need to make these decisions and